It is time for the Monday night review show here on the Anglo-Italian pod. You will notice that I'm not joined by my very good friend Adam, but I am joined by my very good friend Fede Farco, Lazio fan and calcio journalist. Fede, how are we doing today?
Hi, Rory. Hi, everyone. All good yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. As far as Mondays go, not the worst, so I'll take it. And a pretty decent weekend of football overall, but I did want to start with the sad news that broke on Saturday afternoon as the games were kicking off, that English football has lost an icon as Bobby Charlton sadly passed away. I think the timing of it kind of made it feel quite weird. Everyone was watching the football, then it just came out of nowhere. But for me personally, obviously probably the greatest ever English player. I think he's like definitely within the conversation. And once I heard the news, there was a story that at my high school, we had like 4 houses in the school, right, where kids, and it was all organized, and it was named after 4 sports people. So there was Tiger Woods, Paula Ratcliffe, I think it was Henman, and then Bobby Charlton was one of them. And Bobby Charlton came to the school and made a speech to all of our school for an hour, talking about his career, talking about his life, giving us advice. And it was like the Beatles were in the building. Like every kid in that school was chasing him around the building, and he must have signed autographs for all 1,000 of the kids in that school. So it was just it was a real testament to what kind of bloke he was. He answered questions. He was the nicest man in the world. So it was just I had not remembered that for a very long time. And when I heard the story, I was like, what a man. He just came to this random school in a town near Manchester and dedicated his time. So really, really, really sad news. But you, Fede, any memories, thoughts for Bobby Charlton? Obviously, a giant of the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I told you also, on Twitter, I love the English Championship, which is one of the things I really miss the most about England. And obviously, I was, watching the highlights from the Middlesbrough v Birmingham game, and it was very significant that Michael Carrick was on the bench and Wayne Rooney was on the other bench. And then when, as you said, when news broke during the game, and then they waited for half time to display his image on the screen, really, and it was really touching. And also, I had known for years that his last game was actually in Verona when playing Man United. When Man United won and beat Verona 4-1, so apparently that was his very last game, and it's very remembered in Italy normally. Even if it's not a big competition. I think it was the Anglo-Italian Cup anyway, but it makes sense to mention in the
it's the right place.
anyway. So.
Definitely the right place to mention it. Yeah, I think all the tributes flooding in have been incredible, and you remember like that he obviously survived the Munich air disaster within 10 years, lifted the European Cup, like the first English team to do it, like won the World Cup alongside his brother, like just an incredible, incredible life. So a giant of the game who'll be sadly missed. So RIP, so Bobby Charlton. But we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the football this weekend. And as we have Fede on, we're going to focus heavily on Serie A this weekend. It was a very good weekend. But I'm going to start, Fede, I'm going to let you kind of enjoy yourself a little bit. And let's start with Lazio getting a win against Sassuolo. Now, regular listeners will know at the weekend, we always back Sassuolo to beat the big teams. But this time, Lazio managed to get over the hoodoo. What did you make of the performance overall? There was 2 nice goals, I thought, from Lazio.
Yeah, although, obviously with collaboration with the Sassuolo defense somehow.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't expect Lazio to play so smoothly and win this game. And obviously, they could have won even 4-0, to be honest. It was just overwhelming in terms of performance. But it's quite weird because normally after the international break, I never felt Lazio could do properly well, but they did. It kind of surprised me a bit, which is good. Luis Alberto as well scored his 50th goal for Lazio, and I think there are obviously is one of the 2 characters that really stand out so far this season. Because normally his body language has always been as well, like, yeah, I'm doing you a favor to play for this, for this team. But actually, this season you can feel he's actually, feeling like a leader. So motivating the players as well before they enter the pitch. I think it was against the Atalanta home game. And also obviously Tati Castellanos, who Sarri probably is going to have some problem to make sure he coexists with Ciro Immobile when Ciro returns. But to be fair, I mean, I always felt, most Lazio fans, I think, felt he was ready to step up and fill in a bit this gap, because Ciro is really a bit unwell at the moment. But so we knew that Lazio needed another centre forward like him. If you see Milan, for instance, they have Giroud, who's 37 and they're really struggling for a plan B, and it's good to know that Lazio actually have that plan B, which can actually even turn into plan A, because if you think about it, it's a goal and an assist against Atalanta, another assist against the Swallow. It's going to start again in Rotterdam on Wednesday. So I think he responded well to the expectation somehow.
Yeah, I think he's a player that before the season kicked off, we were saying we were going to try and keep an eye on him because he'd done well in Spain. He'd obviously done well over in the USA as well. So have you been impressed in general with him so far? What have you liked most about his style of play?
Yeah, obviously, he's the fact that he's being aggressive and bursting into space. He's never afraid of attempting something that you probably wouldn't imagine. So he has imagination as well, which is good. When he tried an overhead kick.
Yeah.
I think not the Atalanta game, the one before. But anyway, I know it was always the point. It was always the case for him to say, okay, he needs to start now, because the beginning of the season was like, all right, Sarri sends him in the last 10 minutes, then 15, then 20. But you never felt that it was, his moment was really going to come. But all he needed was, some more minutes under his belt, and he showed, he delivered. Even in the Champions League in Glasgow, for the Celtic game, he set up the winner. So obviously, Guendouzi came with the cross, but he set up the action. So I think he's really responding well, and everybody's loving him. For instance, we already have like a GIF on WhatsApp.
Okay.
with him attempting an overhead kick, which wasn't even a goal, but it's just because of the gesture and
you've got to admire the ambition, right? You've got to admire the ambition.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Iconic already, which is nice.
Well, it's been a bit of a strange season for Lazio, because, as I was saying to you just before we went live, I made a pretty bold prediction about Sarri's third season in Lazio. I had a feeling that you were building good defense, adding quality to the squad. I thought this is the time that it's wide open. Lazio can go for it. But it doesn't really feel like, not all is happy behind the scenes. Like, Sarri is making noise. He's falling out with players. How does it feel at the club in general at the moment? And how do you feel towards Sarri? Because especially him and Luis Alberto, they seem to continue this kind of bickering that they have.
Yeah, no, but as I said, I think they probably found a way eventually, because probably Sarri, in the end, he probably gave him some responsibility, some extra responsibility, and Luis accepted that. So he felt like he was taking the team over his shoulder, to be honest. But we've been having ups and downs last season, 2 seasons ago. So you really thought, all right, this third season, as you said, things probably are going to click together at some point. But it's just too early now. And as you said, we also had our downside, losing as usual against AC or against Juve. But for instance, I was at the Juve game in Turin, and the people who had not really watched the game, they were kind of depressed. But I said, really, to be honest with you, I love the performance. I love how the team responded after they went down 2-0. So gave me a good impression despite losing 3-1. So it means that the team was always there anyway, which is a good sign. But obviously, the usual amount of lapses of lacks of concentration is maybe gonna come again. And as you said, last season we also had a record, I think 21 clean sheets, which is in the history of Serie A was just second best to Juve, who achieved 22 for 3 seasons. So it means Lazio
It was a very, very solid defense.
really doing well. And then, this season, everything, just collapsed for multiple reasons. But I think it's actually due to the other players as well, to the midfield players not covering enough ground maybe, or, and last season was actually working very well.
Is it down to Milinkovic-Savic not being there and the midfield also being a bit more like, Kamada adjusting and new players coming in, Guendouzi and stuff? Do you think that is part of it?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's very much part of the situation, to be honest. But
well,
well,
after a pretty terrible start, Lazio do find themselves now 9th, only 4 points behind Fiorentina in 5th, so starting to crawl your way back into contention. What are I know it's very early in the season, but what are your expectations for this season? Like, what have you had to adjust them, or do you still think European football is definitely the aim?
Yeah, I mean, I would be very happy with another top 4 finish, to be honest. But at the same time, before the season started, I predicted Juve and Atalanta to return within the top 4, to be honest. And then, the Inter for sure. So there's not much, much room left. To be honest. So we're going to see, because, Roma will be there and Napoli will be there. So, we need to see.
It is very, very tight up there. And even now, like Fiorentina are emerging, despite the fact they're losing 1-0 at the moment. They're having a very good season so far. So they're definitely in contention as well. But we're going to leave Lazio there. And I think we should start on Saturday, the first game of the weekend. Verona 1, Napoli 3. No Osimhen. But no problem for Napoli as Kvaratskhelia returns to form. Now, I know Verona are always in a bit of a mess and prone to performances like this. But how impressed have you been with Napoli? Rudy Garcia saves his job for another week.
Exactly. I mean, the interesting thing is, as you said, Osimhen wasn't there, but Politano scored again away from home. And, among Napoli players, it's these two. Is Politano and Osimhen have actually been involved in 6 goals this season so far, which is the most for them. Makes it probably conveys a message, which means it's still a good collective, it's still a very good team, but at the same time they're still adjusting, as I said, to the new philosophy, because they've been used to do some, high pressing, capturing the ball up high the pitch. But then, Rudy Garcia actually wants them to defend a bit deeper than they used to do last season. And they're still, struggling to find, distances between, the areas of the pitch, maybe. So obviously when they depending on the opponent, as you said, against Lazio, against Fiorentina, obviously against Real Madrid, they lost these 3 games at home, which is not what they really wanted. But, it's just a process of adjusting to the new coach again. But it's late October now, so they need to step up a notch anyway.
And we also they're still adjusting to him, but we actually don't know how much longer he's going to be there. And I feel like they also are not sure how much longer he's going to be there. It looked like Conte was confirmed last week.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Before the season started, I said, I remember when Rudy Garcia came in at Roma 10 years ago, and he actually came in after Roma lost the cup final to Lazio, which was a very deep blow in that moment. So they needed motivation to, start strongly out of the blocks, and they won 10 consecutive games, which meant Rudy Garcia was a very good coach. Mentally, to motivate his troops and motivate his players. But then, as soon as the motivation ran out, tactically, he lacked something, I think. And also, some of his players, after they left, they weren't really good towards him. I remember Florenzi saying, I did more with Spalletti in a week than, with Rudy Garcia in 2 seasons. It's tactically wise. Which is mad if you think about it, because I think he's still a very good coach. But at the same time, when I thought, all right, Napoli going to get Garcia, but they don't need motivation.
No.
They don't need motivation. They just need to stay there on top. So they probably needed someone else, but I don't know who.
But it was a strange appointment. I think when they made it, I'm not sure. It seemed to me like the affordable option, or the man who wasn't going to argue with De Laurentiis too much, because I feel like De Laurentiis is obviously a control freak.
Yeah.
like completely.
I think so.
But they did defeat Verona, and Verona are, for me, a very different. I really like Verona. I loved it when they had Barak and they had Simeone and they had a really beautiful team. I feel like they've been circling the drain for a few seasons, but they've been lucky that there's 3 teams worse than them. Do you think they're in that situation again this year, that they'll just be lucky that they're not quite the worst team, but they're still not brilliant?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, eventually they pulled off the win in the play out against Spezia, and I think the CD actually comes together when it matters. So it means they probably can pull it out again. But obviously it's probably too early now. Because if you remember, I mean, they started the season as well with 2 wins.
Yeah.
So and nobody really expected that. So they probably, they need to find different opponents. Obviously, Napoli was not really the team you actually expect them to get points. But we will see. Because I remember, last season as well in February, you felt that we're going to be relegated anyway. But then they pulled off a major comeback. So I don't know if they actually need to feel with their back against the wall to perform their best. And I also know that the club, the owner, I don't know if he really wants to invest long term in the club, and that's probably one of the main issues there. But sometimes probably, as you said, probably you feel like the drop is probably better because you get relegated, but then you can start straight up. But you never know, because if you look at Sampdoria this season, they're really struggling, and they won at the weekend, but it's been really tough for them so far. So you never really know what kind of situation you find yourself in. So to be honest with you, I would never want to be relegated to feel like a yo-yo club, because it's not. No,
I feel there's also a lot of teams that like go down to Serie B, then go straight down to Serie C, like Crotone and Benevento are now in Serie C, right? Brescia in Serie C, and Serie C is really, really, really difficult to get out of, like very difficult to get out of. So I feel like, but I think, as you're right, Verona's operating on an absolute shoestring. But I just feel like the squad has been the same since I've come to Italy like 6 years ago. It feels like the same players are still there. But yeah, obviously Napoli isn't the game they're going to be focusing on to get points. But we're going to move on, and we're going to go to Torino 0, Inter 3. Inter go to top of the table for a bit. And Inter looking, again, pretty comfortable. I feel like they're either very comfortable or they just throw points away. There's no middle ground with Inter at the minute. But this was a really... Once the first goal went in, Torino completely folded. Inter made it look very easy. Thuram with another goal. Do you think he's been the signing of the season so far? I think he has to be.
He has. Yeah, because I never expected him to slot in so easily, let's say, replacing Lukaku. Obviously, I know Lukaku is a kind of taboo when you mention Inter, but we have to, because they play Roma on Sunday, so it's gonna be fun, I think, for multiple reasons, but we can talk about it later on. But Inter is just, there are so many interesting statistics. I don't know where to start from. We could start from the fact that they actually scored 13 goals in second halves, which is the most in Serie A, which means they actually, wait for the opponent to, tire out of the game, and then, they just hit you hard. And it's just a strategy, I think. And also, Inzaghi used 45 substitutions out of 45, and among the top teams is the only team who actually, deployed every single substitute in every game, which means they have really very good replacement. The squad is really good. And also, I remember, again, sorry if I mentioned Lazio, but I was the Inter v Lazio game.
Don't worry.
I was in Inter v Lazio game in May. Unfortunately, it was sitting among Inter fans, so we're very, very close to the action, because normally, obviously, as you know, away end is very up high in the San Siro, but I was there, and I was literally next to the Inter bench, and I remember, Inzaghi calling Gosens, another 2, and then he said, come in, and then, I actually saw Inter grabbing a game, we would say by the horns if it was a
Yeah.
bull, and dragging it where they really wanted it. And it was impressive, impressive sign of strength. And I think that's where the season actually turned last season. It was the beginning of May, but they were on course for the Champions League final, obviously, for the Cup final, for the Coppa Italia final. But at the same time, they were losing. They were starting to feel they might lose on Champions League football for the following season, which is mad if you think about it. But that's where the situation was at the moment, at that moment in time. Whereas now, obviously, it's completely different. And also, apart from Thuram, as you mentioned, Lautaro is really incredible. I don't know, it probably won't carry on like that the whole season. But at the minute, it's like, apart from the guy who's scoring for Stuttgart, I don't know if I pronounce it well, Girassi.
Yeah.
He scored, one every 46 minutes. Lautaro scored one every 75, which is second best in Europe. So better than Mbappe, better than Harry Kane, Salah, Bellingham, Haaland. It's really impressive. It continues at this rate. Obviously, because of past seasons, we know that probably is not going to happen because it probably tires out at some point during the season. But it's really impressive, to be honest. And also defensively is I was reading about Jan Sommer being only the third goalkeeper since 94-95 season, actually being able to keep 6 clean sheets in his first 9 games. After, you will be happy about it, 2 Roma goalkeepers who are Lupatelli and Alisson. So they are the other 2. And that also impressed me, to be honest, because after last season I thought, right, there's not going to be any chance Onana is going to be deeply missed, to be honest. But this is not the case. It's not the case. They found a proper replacement over there between the sticks as well.
Well, I think that this has been a strength for Inter, is them replacing players, because they have lost Lukaku twice, right? They have lost, plenty of players have gone out the door, like Skriniar and lots of players, right? And they always bring in someone, and 9 times out of 10 goes really well. I think, obviously, Beppe Marotta is doing an incredible job there. But I think Jan Sommer was he's one of the keepers we joke about. We put him in the kind of Ochoa club. I only remember how good he is at a World Cup. But then seeing him play regular club football, he's been very, very good for me. He's had a few shaky moments, but keeping that many clean sheets, it has been fantastic. So I think Inter's guile in the transfer market has been second to none, really. And again, they're not spending mad amounts of money, really. They're doing it on a Serie A budget, right? It is impressive.
Yeah, because the problem is, if you talk to Inter fans, and because I live in Monza, I talk to Inter fans, even if the most people were Monza and AC, but they always fear, okay, who are we going to sell next summer? Because they feel they need to sell in order to survive, which is probably the case. So if you think about it, next one up should be crazy to think, but it should be Barella, it should be Lautaro. Which is mad if you think about it, but I can't see any other valuable player because eventually, if you think when they sold Hakimi, obviously you mentioned Skriniar, mentioned Lukaku, and it's Onana is the same, so you can't really think about any suitable replacement at the minute. But maybe they already have a strategy in place because as you said, Marotta is doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, you have to have the succession plan, I suppose. And if they want to sell Barella, I'd be more than happy to take him at Arsenal. I'll be honest, I would be delighted. But for Torino, another kind of just Torino season, isn't it? I feel like they're really uninspiring at the moment. They're finding themselves, only 3 points above the relegation zone. We know that Torino will be fine, but there isn't much to get excited about for their fans, really. Do you think?
Yeah, it's true. Especially because there was another derby, poor derby showing as well, and they probably expected a bit more from the players, even if the ultras actually didn't attend the game, which is pretty sad. But it's just also over the summer, I think that you felt the team had really improved. So they need to I don't know. They need to find the place, because you always think, all right, this is the season they're going to be back in Europe at some point, but they're not showing any signs so far. So it's it's a bit of a shame for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought they'd made some clever business this summer, but it doesn't really seem to be working. But a great win for Inter. The Thuram goal is very, very nice finish. Lautaro continues, and Çalhanoğlu from the penalty spot. Inter go to top, 1 point clear of cross-city rivals, but we'll come to them towards the end, I think. I want to talk about... I want to get your thoughts on Mourinho and Roma winning 1-0. He, of course, gets sent off in the 97th minute, 98th minute. He gets sent off for miming to the Monza manager, right? Talk too much, cry more kind of thing. Classic Mourinho, a classic Mourinho performance with a 1-0 win. El Shaarawy getting a goal in a weekend, a difficult weekend for him. It seemed like he's been accused of being involved in the betting scandal. You were saying there's been kind of updates in that story as well, right?
Yeah, because apparently now Fabrizio Corona is under investigation for for defamation, because actually El Shaarawy and Casale sued him. So we will see how it's going to end. But it was in the middle of the rumors as well. So I think it must have been liberating for him. And also he was at Wembley for the game against England. So I probably didn't expect him to actually score the winner, to be honest. But obviously, we should say two things. I think D'Ambrosio's being sent off was probably a bit too much, maybe. Although, second yellow, a bit harsh. But that definitely, changed the face of the game. And even then, I think Monza kind of played pretty well.
They still had the better chances, I think. They had more clear-cut chances than Roma, I think. I think Roma still weren't able to really create much. And I think without Dybala, he's such a huge piece for them, right? They just don't look the same team without him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they desperately need him to create anything. And but also, I must say another thing. Obviously, Roma scored 7 goals in the last 15 minutes, which is obviously the best in Serie A, and the other team are Inter. So watch out for the last 15 minutes. And they play next Sunday. I think it could be entertaining. You never know. But it means they do have a strong character. But I think this has been the main feature for them under Mourinho since he came in. Because to be honest, no disrespect. Well, probably I'm showing a bit of disrespect, but tactically, they never showed any great stuff. Not tactically, but aesthetically, maybe. You see Roma playing, and then how they're going to play. He's very effective. Let's say he's very effective. But the character has always been there anyway. And I think they've been unlucky as well, because they hit the Woodward twice against Monza as well. And apparently I was reading that they are the team who actually hit the Woodward more than any top five. Top five.
This is something that's consistent, because I remember when Tammy Abraham came into the league, he had the same problem. Tammy Abraham hit the post and crossbar for a season full on. Like, I think it happens to Roma a lot. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think it's 40 between posts and crossbar. So it's a lot, which means they still create chances anyway. But it seems like they are very sharp. So they go for goal just when they shoot to go for goal. Otherwise, they just try to kill off the game or kill a position for some reason. So that's always been the case. But so as you said, very typical performance, but still good for them to get the 3 points. Now they're going to play Slavia Prague in Europe on Thursday at home, which let me say doesn't bring good memories for old Roma fans. But
I'm not sure they'll be feeling too confident heading into it. I'll be honest; it has got banana skin written all over it.
Yeah, well, it's a different team. Must be a different team, but still, it's. I was just referring to UEFA Cup quarterfinal for '96 because I'm almost 40, so I remember that game well.
But for Mourinho, he does his classic antics at the end of the game. There's been lots of Inter fans saying that he only did it so that he doesn't have to return to the San Siro, right?
Yeah, I mean, he actually returned once. I was talking about it today, but he came back for the Coppa Italia game, which was probably the first time he actually returned to the San Siro, and that was that. So he didn't come back again. You feel like he's doing it on purpose, especially because Sunday, as you know, the Inter Ultras are actually coming with 50,000 whistles.
Yeah, that is going to be a special
50,000
game.
whistles just for the Romelu Lukaku coming back. But I can tell you, I was a Inter Champions League match when Lukaku was scoring for Chelsea on the very same night, and the mega screen actually showed Lukaku scoring for Chelsea, and I never heard so much vitriol and hatred, and that was just the first time it was sold. It's I just can't imagine what it could be like on Sunday. Then I must admit, even as a Lazio fan, if you think about it from a neutral standpoint, it would be fun if Lukaku opened the scoring.
Yeah, I think that the stadium might explode through sheer rage. Like, I think obviously, like living in Milan, I've got a lot of friends who are Inter fans, and we were trying to get tickets for this game. Obviously, it's been impossible; it's sold out straight away. But my friends who are lucky enough to go were saying that they're expecting the atmosphere to be something special.
Actually, I have 3 friends coming over from London for this game. They didn't know about the vitriol involved, but then when I mentioned, then they were very happy to be there. So
it's gonna be intense. It's gonna be intense, and I think look, once if you fucked over a club once, a kind of okay, but fucking them over twice after they've rescued your career is a special kind of dick move. So I think some of it he's kind of been asking for, but it'll be an interesting game next weekend. Roma will be glad that they got a win heading into it at least. Let's move on to the Sunday. Continue on the Sunday, and Salernitana 2. Cagliari 2. Where would they be without Boulaye Dia? Another 2 goals in the 86th and 95th minute. All of the goals coming here very late on. The first goal coming in the 79th from Luvumbo, who, despite Cagliari having a bit of a terrible season, Luvumbo's looked pretty sharp, had a few goals, a few assists. He's looking pretty good. These are 2 teams that aren't long for Serie A, right? I wasn't really impressed with the quality.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you were mentioning Verona, and I think the Salernitana and Cagliari are actually there. We have probably to give some time to Pippo Inzaghi, see if we can perform any miracle and keep them up again, because obviously Salernitana they've been there in the last 2 seasons as well. You always think and predict they're gonna go down, but they didn't. So they actually showed they were a pretty good side. So I don't know. It was, as you said, a bit of a weird game, but it must have been because of the Inzaghi-Ranieri connection over there on the bench. It was fun in the end. They probably thought, all right, it's still October, so we can still try to play it out a bit, and decided to have some fun in the very end. But
I mean, they're two teams that I've not really I've been a big fan of Salernitana since they came up because I like the underdog. I like the scrappy underdog, and they've continued somehow to stay in the league. But I do feel like this year, because Dia's head got turned just before the start of the season, and there was very clear links to him moving, it feels like he's kind of already got one foot out the door. I know he's just scored 2 goals, but I feel like in January he could be gone. And if he is, then Salernitana are definitely in trouble. But I have been impressed by Cabral. I think he's really strong, direct. He runs his balls off, and he got the assist for one of the goals for Dia. And I think he's a player that he needs a little bit of polishing, a little bit of his final product improving, but a player that I think is quite exciting for them. But I do think overall their squad just lacks a little bit of quality. If you're still relying on Candreva, as good a player as he's been in Serie A, if you're still relying on him now, I think you might be in trouble. And for Cagliari, as I said, Luvumbo I've been impressed with, but a lot of the squad I kind of think is just kind of Serie B, but Serie B standard. I always expected quite a lot from Nandez when he was in Serie A last time, but it feels like he's not really lived up to his potential, and again is looking struggling a little bit. But yes, they share the points. Both teams do remain in the relegation zone. Cagliari bottom and Salernitana just 1 point ahead of them. Both teams winless. So we're going to move on to. It feels like I'm saying every team's my favorite team, but I do have a very big soft spot for Bologna. Bologna 2, Frosinone 1. Orsolini doesn't score. I'm gutted. He's in my Fantacalcio.
All right, I guess so.
But Lewis Ferguson continues to score. Another great season for him in Serie A. He's been banging them in already.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so the 8th consecutive unbeaten game for Bologna, and as you said, probably they didn't start the season as they expected, but now they're really back into it. I think even last season they were playing pretty good football, and when they around March, April, when the rumors started to circulate that maybe Inter might get rid of Inzaghi, which is mad if you think about it. Now, but, I remember attending the Inter v Lecce game, and the speaker was mentioning, as normally do in Italian football stadiums, that you just, mention the name of the player, of the manager, and then the crowd responds. And when he mentioned Simone, then nobody was actually shouting Inzaghi, which is, it was a bit mad. It was March. So, when rumors were circulating that actually he might get sacked or whatever, I always thought, Thiago Motta is going to be right replacement for this team. Maybe, yeah, it wasn't the right time, but it could be at some point, maybe in a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 seasons time, because the way the team plays is actually really good. And also I mentioned for De Silvestri scoring with a outside of the box header, which is not really common. I think last time it was Gattuso in 2011, which says it all.
Nice.
It was really powerful. But very interesting. I mean, if they keep going like this the whole season, they might have a good chance of maybe Conference League, or maybe it should make sense. It could make sense because of the way they have actually built up.
Well, I think the squad is quite young and exciting. Like, you've got Bukema's come in and has just slotted straight into the centre back position, looked at home straight away, an exciting young centre back. You've got Orsolini, isn't that young. He's a player who I always think is younger than he is. But even like Zirkzee up front, getting the minutes that he kind of needs, because I felt like while Arnautovic was there, he wasn't really getting the opportunity. But seeing him start every game and seeing him, you can see his confidence growing and him starting to feel a bit more comfortable in the league. And I've been impressed with him in general. I really, really like the squad. At the beginning of the season, I predicted them to get Europe. I said, I think they'll get Conference League if they have a really good run, because last year they just couldn't quite get that consistency. But yeah, as you said, 8 unbeaten now, and it feels like they're kind of finding their feet. So great for them. Frosinone, they showed a bit of promise, but they're struggling as of late. They've now lost their last. They've only won 1 in their last 5, so drawing 2. So 2 draws, 2 losses, and a win. Have you been impressed with Frosinone? Obviously, Di Francesco in charge. They seem to be the best of the promoted teams, right?
Yeah. I mean, the point is, they're not getting enough points, obviously. But even if the first game, the opener against Napoli, I think they played pretty well for some parts of the game. Even in the game against Roma, I think they were very well set up. Obviously, then what made the difference in that game was obviously quality of Roma players anyway. So they still lack quality of top players, I think. But Di Francesco is a good tactician anyway. So still they're gonna be in the scramble there. Yeah. At the bottom somehow, but they do give it the impression that they can play good games at times. They can still perform.
I'm just really hoping that Khedira, like, my girlfriend is from Bari, so I was watching a lot of Bari last year. Khedira was unbelievable. He's not quite taken to Serie A as much as I'd hoped, so I'm still putting all my chips on him finding his feet at some point, because that guy is absolute chaos.
They should have been promoted, to be honest.
They really, really, really should have been.
Yeah, and then you see now Cagliari. I probably didn't even expect to be there, and then and you can see now that what they do. I'm not sure Barry would have done better, to be honest, because
No,
I
I don't
know
think so.
the many struggles they had. It was a miracle, but still, they deserved it.
Yeah, that game was infuriating. Absolutely,
Yeah.
the last 10 seconds, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. We're going to move on because I'm getting flashbacks to Atalanta 2, Genoa 0. Lookman getting the goal. It took a very long time for them to give this goal. Do you think they got it right? It definitely hit his hand, but he knew nothing about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it was just right, and they should, as I said, they should be back. They should be back there in the top four anyway. And now they play Sturm Graz away on Thursday. If you think, if you talk to any Atalanta fan, they would expect this season to be the season they actually maybe win any silverware for some reason. Like it should make sense after how many years? 6, 7 years they've been, in the at the very top. So you feel like they probably deserve to be rewarded at some point. But even if it was, some more Champions League football, I think they will be happy, and they're showing some pretty decent, pretty good performances. Still maybe not the Atalanta side we were used to a couple of seasons, 2-3 seasons ago, when they were actually named the Ajax of Italy. But still, talking of which, Ajax is now I think it's in relegation zone in the Eredivisie, which is mad. But anyway,
are not in a good place. They are really not. It's fascinating what is going on there. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, great win for Atalanta. Genoa, Stephen, after a pretty promising start to the season,
Yeah, I mean,
they've
they
now
beat
won
Lazio
one of
Roma,
their
yeah.
last 5.
Yeah. I mean, they probably felt, that done enough to survive already, because winning at the Olimpico and then beating Roma 4-1, and then you felt like, yeah, right, this is it. But the problem is, it's a very long season anyway, so there's no room for complacency in Serie A. Obviously, I didn't expect them to get the points in Bergamo, but at the same time, they gave a much better image of themselves in previous games. So
disappointing for them. I think Gilardino has a bit of a job there on his hands to try and get that.
And I think many on your Twitter comments were actually, mentioning Genoa like this surprise team of the season. They probably, respected that in some games, but it feels like they don't want to do too much. But they could, they could, and there's no reason to doubt about it.
Yeah, no, I think the squad's definitely good enough. They just need to. Gilardino just needs to get them all back together. I feel like they still, even when it was 1-0, like Atalanta scored in the 95th minute. I think they got the second goal through Ederson. Even when it was 1-0, Genoa was still pushing and pushing and pushing. There was no part of like Gilardino that was there like just okay. We've lost it. It's just, and I do love that attitude and that kind of a spirit within the team. But obviously, just leave yourself exposed at the back once you do that, especially with Atalanta. But it was good to see Scamacca make a return as well. Got an assist as he's back in the first team. Great to see. And then we had the main event. Here we go. Milan 0, Juve 1. In the least surprising result of all time, Juventus shithouse a 1-0 win away. What was surprising was Max Allegri having a nervous breakdown on the touchline as the game went on.
No tie, no suit. He was just left with his shirt. Yeah.
He was absolutely going for it. I think he saw was it the Argentinian manager, the video that went viral where he like ripped his shirt off. Maybe
course,
it was in Portugal.
Nelson Vivas. Nelson Vivas,
yeah. I think he was doing his own tribute to that. I think I had a theory that he wanted to make it seem like he had a master plan, that it was like, you're not sticking to my master plan, so I'm going to lose my mind, rather than it just being a bit of a lucky win for Juve. How did you feel about this game?
Yeah, I think in the press conference afterwards, he mentioned he didn't want his players to lose their minds. Like, they were feeling they arrived there, so he wanted them to be focused until the very end. Okay. But still, it was a bit of an overreaction. I mean, I think Juve is still feeling, very consistent, as you said, in terms of results. 4th consecutive clean sheets, at 6 clean sheets out of 9, which is, still good. It means they're still building on the defense. Obviously, if you talk to any Juve fan, they won't be happy with the with the performance. They will be happy with the result, won't be happy with the performance in mostly any game this season, to be honest. Maybe, yeah, they enjoyed the Lazio game, but I'm not sure about the rest. But it was interesting to see, what we call in Italian the Kabbalah, which is, Locatelli actually netting the winner for Juve exactly 7 years after he netted the winner for
Incredible.
Milan in the same fixture, which is mad. So 2016, he netted the winner as a youngster. He was 18 years old. Montella was the manager. And then now, playing for Juve, he nets the winner on the very same day, which is mad. Yeah, I mean, he probably had the impression that Gatti, for instance, was probably booked a bit late throughout the game. It felt like Juve got away with it a bit more than Milan because of the red card, which really changed the game as well.
What did you think of the red card? I feel like it was just very naive from Thiaw. I felt like maybe Tomori was making the recovery one, but I couldn't be certain of it.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I mean, he just went for it, but he just probably didn't assess the whole situation properly. Obviously, Milan, they have to blame themselves for this reason, but they haven't really been able to play 4 games with all the players they wanted. They were missing Maignan and Theo Hernandez yesterday, and Tomori, I think, in the game against Roma. And they were still missing key players in key games, which is I see a question from Adam.
Could this be the worst Juventus side to ever win a game? Could this be that? I think they were pretty terrible. But this is what Allegri is, right? He hasn't changed since he was last at Juve. Do you think, like, the fans are kind of sick of it, the players are seemingly sick of it, but the owners can't afford to sack him? It just feels like this purgatory at the minute, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and also the fact, also yesterday's press conference, he was mentioning the fact that the strategy of the club has been investing on youth, and it feels like as you said, they're not having any fun under him, but still being very effective in the games, which is ultimately what they really want. I think Marotta also 2 days ago said the Juve were favourites to win the league. It's probably to put some burden over them as well, because otherwise, we'll feel like they are the underdogs, which is not the case.
They can never be the underdogs. They can never be the underdogs.
Exactly.
It's not possible. Well, I know that every Juve fan I know, all they care about is the result. That's all they care about is, did we win? Okay, cool, move on. They don't really seem to care about the aesthetics. And Allegri is taking advantage of that. For Milan, though, do you think, I felt like Pioli kind of got this wrong a little bit by pushing so high up, especially the back line? It's been exposed a few times. I remember the Inter game as well. I felt like they were caught out on that. Do you think he needs to be able to adapt his tactics to other managers better? Because I feel like they have some great performances, but then they'll just get absolutely robbed in other games or just battered. I feel like he can't really adapt to other tactics.
Yeah, I mean, problem is when they face a team like Inter, they will always suffer on the one-on-one situations, and it was probably the same yesterday at some point. And also, it must be said, they would play after 40 minutes. They were playing with basically 6 replacements out of 10 players on the pitch, because you had Kalulu, Florenzi, Adli, instead of having Theo Hernandez, Loftus-Cheek, and Krunic. So you feel like they're still adjusting or trying to find a plan B. And I remember, I think Pioli was very nervous over the summer because I've been told that he's always been very camera friendly, social media friendly with the guys who actually work at AC. But this summer it wasn't really the same, probably because he was trying something different tactically, and you feel like he's still trying to find that spark. But as I said before, obviously they can't rely on Giroud the whole season. They need some someone to come in January. And also, you think this is a very big week because after playing Juve, then going to Paris and then going to Naples over the weekend. So it probably won't define the whole season, we know. But because of their confidence, it could be very important to get some results. Even if you think about the Napoli game last season, you felt it was going to be impossible for them to do it. They actually won in Napoli twice in the Serie A and the Champions League, 4-0 in the league. So, and you actually didn't expect them to pull out the feet. So it means in big games they actually can show up. But yesterday they still lost, and they lost the derby in a tragic way. So you don't know what's behind the corner, which is crazy if you think about this Milan side. They gave us the impression they actually became consistent at some point.
I thought they were showing a bit more consistency than Inter, if you know what I mean, because Inter were just like throwing away points or having a draw here or there. I thought that Milan was starting to build up to something, but this is just a bit of a knock. Obviously, as you said, the red card makes a huge difference. And as much as Mirante stood no chance for that goal, when you're down to your third choice keeper, things aren't really going your way. Like, that was his first start in 2 years, right? He's 40 years old. Like, it's not been the easiest start for Milan, and they're still only 1 point behind Inter, so I'm sure they'll move on. But
what Adam is saying as well, I think nobody really stepped up because you expected someone to step up at some point. But, as he says, you can't really tell who was the best player for Milan apart from Mirante.
And as always, I felt like their attack was just Leao or nothing, basically. It was just, if Leao doesn't do anything, then nobody does anything. So he definitely needs to figure out that plan B. But as it currently stands in Serie A, Fiorentina are losing somehow at home to Empoli, which is genuinely impressive. It's Caputo who got the goal in the 21st minute. It's currently the 70th minute. Fiorentina, I've got Nzola in my Fantacalcio. He really, really needs to do something for me. Or Parisi, I'll take either of them. And Tottenham are currently winning 2-0 against Fulham, which puts them top of the table and 2 points ahead of us. Fantastic. That is not what I wanted to see. But we're going to very quickly do a Premier League roundup, very, very quickly. The headlines were Chelsea 2, Arsenal 2. Chelsea managed to throw away a win, snatch a draw from the jaws of victory. And Arsenal will take the points and run in that one. I don't know if you saw the goal from Declan Rice. Absolutely fantastic finish.
Yeah, no, actually, I want to ask you a question about Arsenal.
Go for it. Go for it.
I mean, if you feel if you feel they are improving again this season, or if they reach the very best.
It's difficult. I feel like we
saw last season as well.
Yeah, well, last season was such a surprise and such a roller coaster and just incredible until the end. We spent a lot of money this summer, and I'm finding myself thinking, are we a better team this year? And I don't think we are. I think we are changing a little bit. Arteta is trying to make us a bit more boring, a bit more predictable. Like, not predictable, but a bit more stable. Like last year, it was all 96-minute winners and just emotion. This season, it seems much more, let's control games. Let's be a bit more like City. And I think we're seeing that transition. I also think, even though he only played one game for us, Jurrien Timber is a huge miss. I think he was going to be a big part of how we played this year, and not having him is massive. I think players like Zinchenko might not be much longer for the team. I feel like Arteta is kind of still transitioning us in a positive direction. We're still unbeaten this year. It's still going well. It's not as exciting. It's just not as exciting, I think. But, we still beat United in the last minute. I'll take that. But I do want Aaron Ramsdale back in goal. I'm not trusting David Raya at all. But much improved from Chelsea. I think they've been really unlucky this year in general. Like, have you seen much of them? Like, their performances haven't really matched the points they got.
Yeah, Chelsea, you mean? Yeah. But although, in terms, I don't know what you made of them in terms of transfers and everything. I probably expected a bit. It's obviously a strategy that they have in place, but to probably have more on youth and on different kind of players because of the manager and everything. But I probably would expect a different strategy over the summer all along. But still, it means they're still performing, so probably results will come at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was much, much improved from them. Especially Thiago Silva was by far their best player at 40 years old. He was incredible at the back. And also in midfield, Conor Gallagher was absolutely unstoppable. Elsewhere, Man City managed to beat Brighton 2-1. De Zerbi struggling a little bit recently at Brighton, but they have some favourable fixtures coming up. They've got Ajax in the Europa League, which could be a nice respite this week. Yeah. As we said, the state that Ajax are in, Brighton, that could be a nice little confidence boost. Ansu Fati getting the goal, Haaland, of course, scoring, and Manuel Akanji getting sent off in the 95th minute. Newcastle slapping 4 past Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace defensively been pretty good this season, but Newcastle do not care. Jacob Murphy with one of the most beautiful lucky goals I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if you saw that one. Spun off his foot into the top corner. He couldn't believe it either. Gordon getting the goal, Longstaff, and of course, Callum Wilson. And then the big game of the weekend was the Merseyside derby. Liverpool 2, Everton 0. Everton fans all very, very, very angry that Konate wasn't sent off. Ashley Young was sent off. Mohamed Salah with a penalty. And of course, he gets his second. Did you see the VAR decisions? VAR in England is going very, very badly at the minute.
Yeah. I saw the controversy, obviously. But I was never going to expect Everton to win this game, to be honest, unfortunately. The only time it was during COVID with the empty Anfield. Before the Kevin Campbell netting the winner in 99. So it's a bit of a disappointment all the time. The point is, this time, gave until the sending off, it was just giving impression probably they could get a bit of a result. But unlike, other times when Liverpool felt they were just too much, this time it felt Everton could actually pull out a result. But still, they're missing a lot of in every area of the pitch. We know this is due to the club and the new stadium and everything, but still, it's a bit painful for Everton fans.
Honestly, they are going through the mill. I feel so sorry for them. But I did think they'd get a draw. I thought, okay, this is going to be 0-0. They'll come out of there with a point, and it'll be kind of a bit of a confidence boost. I think Everton are a bit mad because they've got one of the highest XGs in the Premier League, but they just cannot score. The quality of chances they're creating is insane. They just cannot put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, the home games as well. Yeah, which lost at the start of the season. Yeah, they were generating lots of chances, but I didn't know at this point the XG was still very high.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. And I think Beto isn't quite finding his feet yet. But again, it's in a team that are underperforming.
It's a shame because I remember him scoring in the League Cup as well. So you felt like, all right, he's locked in immediately. It's not the case, apparently. Yeah.
It's not the case. And Luton Town come from 2-0 down to draw away at Nottingham Forest. Luton are going to be the only promoted team to stay up. There you go. They are going to be the ones that stay up. They're going to be the one that everyone discounted them. Yeah. I'm telling you, they're going to stay up because Bournemouth are worse than them. Sheffield United are definitely worse than them. And I think, who else is the other team down there? Burnley. Yeah. All 3 of them are gone already, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I really hope for Luton Town because during my time in England, I visited 57 stadiums.
Oh wow, nice. Okay, good work.
And Kenilworth Road is definitely top 3 for me.
It's a banger, eh?
It's wonderful. Yeah. It's the best ground.
It's just incredible. It's incredible.
I loved it because of everything, because of all the surroundings, the shape, and everything is so unique. It's just no other place.
Yeah, no, well, that's it exactly. And they were when they came into the Premier League, everyone was just like, they're down. And there's been so many fans and so many just really dismissive comments and really hot. And I just really hope they stay up, even if they just stay up and go down next year. Just have that 1 year where you stay up and be like, we did it, right? Yeah. And Irishman, love to see it. Kiedozie Ogbeni, who's an absolute hero for Ireland, gets his goal for Luton as well. So delighted to see that. Man United somehow beat Sheffield United 2-1 despite a horrific performance. Sheffield United continue to perform well for about 30 minutes and then throw games away. It's incredible how they managed to lose this game. Man United, very, very lucky, but I do have to say an incredible goal from Dalot absolutely batters it to win the game. And Sheffield United continue to look for their first win. And Aston Villa, what a season they are having. 4-1 against West Ham. Douglas Luiz getting 2 goals. Ollie Watkins with a hell of a finish. Near post top corner, which I love to see. And Leon Bailey getting in on the action. Really, I thought that game would be a lot closer than it was. I'll be honest. I thought West Ham would have a bit more about that. But Aston Villa, again, in second halves, just turning it on. Incredible. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was seeing the stat, probably you saw that as well, that since Unai Emery came in, I think Aston Villa probably 4th. Because of the amount of points they actually amassed during his tenure at the club. I really, hope they back in Europe at some point this season. Should be interesting. Obviously, as you know, in Italy, the focus was very much on Nicolo Zaniolo after the scandal and everything. But on the press today, they were like highlighting the fact that the club is actually trying to protect him, or Newcastle is trying to say the same with Tonali, and trying to shield him away from any unwanted attention, which is probably the fans also want. It's not something that really affecting Aston Villa at all. So it wouldn't be fair on Aston Villa. It wouldn't be fair on Newcastle. So
definitely,
it's just we need to keep that bad stuff on in Italy, I think.
Definitely. I do feel like Zaniolo has always just needed an arm around his shoulder as well, or just someone to be like, come on, mate, just look after him a little bit. I don't know if he's able. He always seems to make fairly stupid decisions. And I'm like, I just feel like he needs a bit of guidance. I don't know. I like him as a player.
Which I think he had found probably under Mourinho at Roma, but then, for multiple reasons, then things deteriorated and he wanted to move out. And then, the rumor in Rome now is that he wanted to move out and people were chasing him on the street because of the money that he actually owed to them. But it's just a rumor. We know that. We can't prove it. But I was just wanting to say.
This sounds quite AS Roma, that story. I'll be honest. This sounds quite Roma. But that does mean Aston Villa have won 11 consecutive home league matches for the first time since 1983, which is incredible. Absolute fortress Villa Park. Again, a fantastic stadium in the UK. I absolutely love Villa Park. Great place to visit.
Sorry, it's in the top 3 for me anyway. Yeah, but that's because of the 99.
Okay, fair, absolutely fair.
I love it anyway. I love the ground. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's always a stadium that I think they should do the FA Cup semi-finals back at Villa Park. It's always 100%. Just absolutely iconic. 100%. Absolutely iconic.
So but we have a stadium. Is Adam asking Fede's knees? How are your knees? Because mine and hers have been that kind of throat. But I went to Luton Town v Cambridge, and Luton won 7-0.
Oof!
And I was in the press box, so my knees were good.
We got catering and everything, no? Well, we do have football. The Champions League's back. The Champions League is back. Fantastic. I'm just going to very quickly go through the fixtures, talk about the Italian teams. We have Inter taking on RB Salzburg. I think that should be fairly routine for Inter. Napoli away to Union Berlin. That's an interesting one. Union Berlin have been throwing away games at the end.
They lost 8 consecutive games. So 6 in the Bundesliga, 2 in the Champions League, which is a lot. So,
that was too many. Some would say that was too many.
But it's still very fascinating, I think, for Napoli playing the Olympiastadion in Berlin. Obviously, it's the last fond memory Italy fans have of their national team. So it's nice to play there, I think.
No, that's very true. That's very true. But like Union Berlin, they've given away late goals in each of their last Champions League games, the 2 they've played. And I feel like they just need to get a little bit better at seeing games out. So I think they can really challenge Napoli. It's just about doing it for the 98 minutes or whatever it's going to be. Sevilla will be hosting Arsenal. I'm very nervous about that one. Sevilla have knocked us out of the Europa League twice, I think. After the loss to Lens, that's a game we really, really need to not lose. Then we have Feyenoord hosting Lazio. That's going to be an interesting one. How do you feel about that one? That's a hell of an away trip.
It's another tough one. Obviously, Lazio fans as well have been banned from the game, which is weird because they played each other last season, and all the people who went to Rotterdam, they said it was fine, and then they were banned for the game in Rome. But that was not because of Lazio fans; it's because of Roma, which is crazy because you obviously remember the episode of the
Yes.
Spanish steps, and then since then it's like if they created a precedent, so Italian authorities feel like, okay, we can ban them all together from every other game in Rome they will have, which is pretty unfair, I think. And
Yeah.
so to reciprocate the attention, and UEFA then bans Lazio fans for the game in Rotterdam in Holland, but it doesn't make sense. But anyway, I feel it's going to be very interesting because before the Glasgow game, I thought when Lazio feel really the pressure of an away ground like one of those, like the Celtic one, like the Feyenoord, like those, very hot grounds, they don't really feel, they don't really hold the pressure. But they showed in Glasgow they could actually do it. So let's see if they can actually do something, because last season it was very unfortunate to exit the Europa League. All the teams ending with 8 points,
Yes.
and all the all 4 teams with 8 points, which is totally unprecedented. And Lazio crashed out of the competition, which is mad, losing to Feyenoord in the last game of the season. And Sarri obviously complained about the glasses of beer running on the pitch, of bags of piss. So pardon my French, but that's just an excuse. You just need to focus on the game and do well. And that Feyenoord, they're not top in the league is just because I think PSV won 9 out of 9, but then Feyenoord they've won the last 7. So I think they drew the first 2, and then they won the 7 consecutive games. So they're still in a very good form. So
it's a tricky place to go. I feel like Lazio's group is just full of hot stadiums to go to. You've got Celtic, Lazio, and Atletico Madrid. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So that should be a very entertaining game. We have Newcastle taking on Dortmund. That is going to be a fascinating one as well. Dortmund still not fantastic. Newcastle, they've scored 4 goals.
PSG
in like
PSG.
Yeah, they scored.
All right.
I think they're the top scorers in the Premier League now, or second top scorers in the Premier League. They are absolutely banging the goals in. You have to take away the 8 against Sheffield United, I suppose, but they are absolutely banging the goals in. I think that could be a high-scoring one there. Then we have PSG hosting Milan. How do you see this game going? Milan fresh off that defeat. PSG scarred from Newcastle. They've got a point to prove now, right?
Exactly, yeah, they do. And I think against Strasbourg, they were playing more of a 3-4-3 formation, but at some point it resembled 3-3-4. Maybe sometimes they were actually attacking with 5, at the usual big amount of possession, 78%. But even in the game against Newcastle, they had, I think, 72% possession and still lost the game 4-1. So, it's they need to prove a point, as you say, and maybe go all out for it. And that's going to be a problem for Milan. But the thing is, Maignan returning to the lineup, and then Theo Hernandez as well. It's good for them to be back in the game in France. They will feel even more motivation to do well.
Very true. That's a very good point. And then the last one we have is Young Boys taking on Man City. That group, we are basically refusing to report on that group because there's just nothing to say about it apart from Man City will go through top. In the Europa League, that's very quickly, we have Olympiacos hosting West Ham, Sturm Graz hosting Atalanta, Brighton taking on Ajax. That's going to be a fantastic one.
Best game,
Liverpool, I'm really excited about that one, even though it's not peak Ajax. That could be a big win for Brighton, hopefully. Liverpool hosting Toulouse, and Roma, as we said, taking on Slavia Praha. And in the Conference League, we have Aston Villa away to AZ Alkmaar. That'd be a tricky one. And then we have, who's the last one? Fiorentina.
Kukaricki, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. I have no idea how to say that. Kukaricki.
Fiorentina. It's just because Kolarov played for them, I remember, but otherwise I wouldn't know.
You know more than me. Fair play. And Fiorentina are now losing 2-0 to Empoli. Ooh. That is impressive. Fede, we are finished for today. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been fantastic. When our viewers and listeners want to check out your stuff, where do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, on the Twitter profile, mostly Fede Farco. I'm on Instagram as well. You might find me there. But I mean, I keep following you guys because you're always very good opinion, very good information on everything. on both countries, which is great for people like me who actually lived in England and born in Italy. So it's brilliant to keep up with the same, with the both countries really, with both level of football. Although, as I said, my favorite is the Championship, and I watch every highlight and every game more than the Premier League.
Yeah, well, honestly, the Championship in terms of entertainment
We
is
should do
always,
yeah.
always incredible. Come the end of the season, there's always so much on the line. It's insane. I do love the Championship.
We should some, I don't know, maybe a full episode on Serie B and Championship one day.
We can absolutely do that. We
I
can
don't know
absolutely
if
do
you're going
that.
to get big numbers on that, but still, it should be interesting.
Definitely. I've got a lot of time for Serie B as well, even though Bari are struggling this year. I've still got a lot of time for Serie B. Well, Fede, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. We will see you again. Listeners, thank you for joining us as well. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. Pop in the comments if you strongly agree or disagree to anything we've said. You can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, and on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. We will see you on Friday, where we'll be recapping all the Champions League action and talking about a big weekend in the Premier League and Serie A. We will see you there. Grazie, a dopo. I can't find the button.